Once upon a time, in a quiet green forest called the 100-Acre Wood, there lived a small golden bear named Winnie the Pooh, who loved nothing more in the world than honey. He was a kind, thoughtful bear, though not a very clever one, and every morning he woke up humming softly to himself, thinking, "I wonder what's for breakfast. Maybe just a little something." Pooh's house was small and cozy, built under a great old tree, with a sign above the door that said, "Mr. Sanders." And though no one knew why, Pooh thought it looked rather nice. Each day, he wandered through the forest singing cheerful songs, visiting his friends Piglet, Rabbit, Eeyore, Owl, Kanga, Roo, and of course, Christopher Robin, who loved all of them dearly. One bright morning, Pooh's tummy gave a deep growl, reminding him that it was a good time for honey. So he opened his cupboard and found that all the jars were empty. "Oh, bother," said Pooh, scratching his head. "If there's no honey here, perhaps there's some up in the trees where the bees live, because where there are bees, there is always honey." He stepped outside and heard a buzzing sound high above, so he looked up and saw a large beehive hanging from a branch that swayed gently in the wind. "Aha," said Pooh, "that must be the place." And he began to climb, slowly and carefully, though the higher he went, the more the tree began to shake and creak. When he reached the hive, he stretched out his paw to taste the honey, but the branch snapped, and down he tumbled through the leaves, landing in a prickly bush. He brushed himself off and thought for a moment. "If bees make honey, and bees don't like strangers, perhaps I could disguise myself as a little black rain cloud." So Pooh went to Christopher Robin's house and said, "Could you help me, old friend? I need a balloon to float up to the honey without the bees noticing." Christopher Robin smiled and gave Pooh a big blue balloon, then held up an umbrella and said, "If I wave this around, you'll look just like a cloud passing by." Pooh took the balloon, rose slowly into the air, and drifted toward the beehive, humming softly. "Tut tut, it looks like rain," hoping the bees would believe him. But the bees buzzed suspiciously. One stung him on the nose, and as the balloon began to lose air, Pooh drifted down again, sticky and covered in honey. Christopher Robin laughed kindly and said, "Silly old bear," and Pooh smiled, licking his paw. "Yes," he said, "but a bear who loves honey very much." A few days later, Pooh went to visit his small friend Piglet, whose house was made of sticks and had a sign that said, "Trespassers W," though no one really knew what it meant. It was a blustery afternoon, the wind rushing through the trees, and Piglet held onto his scarf while saying, "Oh, Pooh, it's terribly windy today, isn't it?" "Yes," said Pooh, "the sort of day that makes you feel small and blowy." And the two friends set off together through the forest to see how everyone else was doing. They saw Rabbit chasing his hat, Eeyore trying not to be blown away, and Owl holding tightly to his branch while shouting advice to no one in particular. By evening, the wind calmed down, and everyone gathered at Pooh's house to share honey, bread, and laughter, while the fire crackled softly and shadows danced on the walls. One sunny morning, Pooh decided to visit Eeyore, who was standing by the river looking especially gloomy, staring at the water and sighing to himself. "Good morning, Eeyore," said Pooh. "Good morning, Pooh Bear," said Eeyore sadly. "If it is a good morning, which I doubt." "What's the matter?" asked Pooh gently, and Eeyore replied, "It's my tail. It's gone. Someone must have taken it, or it's fallen off again." "Oh dear," said Pooh, "we must do something about that." And off he went to find Christopher Robin, who promised to help look for it. After searching all through the forest, they discovered that Owl had been using Eeyore's tail as a bell pull for his front door, quite without realizing it. Christopher Robin took it back, pinned it carefully onto Eeyore, and said, "There, good as new," and Eeyore swished it proudly. "Well," he said, "it's not much of a tail, but it's mine." One afternoon, Pooh went to visit Rabbit, who invited him in for a little something, and of course, a little something turned out to be quite a lot of honey. Pooh ate one jar, then another, and another, until his round tummy was so full that when he tried to leave, he got stuck in Rabbit's front door. "Oh, bother," said Pooh, and Rabbit tried to push him from behind, but he couldn't move, so Pooh decided to wait until he became thinner again. For a week, Rabbit hung towels around Pooh's bottom, pretending it was part of the wall, while Christopher Robin brought him books to read and stories to keep him company. At last, Pooh slimmed down enough to pop free with a great whoosh, rolling across the grass as everyone laughed and cheered, "Hooray for Pooh!" Not long after, two new friends moved into the forest, Kanga and her little Joey, Roo, who hopped everywhere and brought warm soup to share with everyone. At first, Piglet was nervous because Kanga was big and Roo was always jumping, but soon they all became good friends and the forest felt even happier. Sometimes Christopher Robin would gather all the animals for an adventure, like the day he decided they would go on an expedition to find the North Pole. No one really knew what a North Pole was, but they packed food and honey and set off bravely through the woods, with Pooh humming and Piglet holding his paw. Along the way, Roo slipped into a small stream, and Pooh jumped in to save him, holding onto a long stick until Christopher Robin pulled them both out. When Roo was safe again, Christopher Robin smiled and said, "Pooh, you found the North Pole." And Pooh looked proud, though he wasn't quite sure how he'd done it. As the days went by, life in the 100 Acre Wood was peaceful and full of small adventures, building houses, helping friends, and always sharing honey. Sometimes, in the evenings, Pooh would sit quietly outside his door, watching the pink sky fade into gold, thinking about his friends and humming softly. Christopher Robin would come and sit beside him, and together they'd watch the stars appear, the forest whispering around them like a gentle lullaby. "What are you thinking about, Pooh?" Christopher Robin would ask, and Pooh would say, "I was thinking about everything, and a bit about honey, and mostly about you." Christopher Robin smiled and said, "You're the best bear in all the world," and Pooh replied, "And you're my favorite boy." The stars twinkled brighter, the trees rustled softly, and one by one, all the friends of the 100 Acre Wood drifted off to sleep under the peaceful night sky. Good night, Winnie the Pooh. Good night, Piglet and Eeyore. Good night, Rabbit, Owl, Kanga, Roo, and Christopher Robin. Good night, little dreamer. May your dreams be soft, your heart be kind, and your world always filled with honey and friendship.